Hello, boys and girls, former boys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, мальчики и девочки. В эфире программа Ushanka Show. Today's video is Soviet Toys, Советские игрушки Part 2. If by any chance you missed Part 1, it will be below in the comment section. So in that video, I told you mostly about the toys that I played with and had experience. And now we're going to answer some of your questions and talk about other toys that I personally never owned and maybe even never played with. Our first question was from Ray79. What about Tin Soldier sets? You didn't even mention them. Yes, of course we had metal toy soldiers, but as you see in this photo, they look quite boring. There's no way you can play wars against each other using these toy soldiers. You maybe do like marches or setting up guards. But they were quite boring, so I might have a couple of those, but I didn't play much with them. If you remember, I was born in 1971, so I was playing with toys in mid-70s, early 80s. So we started getting plastic toys like this one right here, but they were really not cool to play with. Now, we did have some really cool plastic toys, like these ones right here we call Cowboysy. So that's, Russian cowboy, and this is Cowboyets, so many of them Cowboysy. Those ones any boy would kill for. They were hard to get, they were deficit, and of course it's really bizarre that it's a wild, wild west in the Soviet Union. Of course, when I was a kid, I didn't think how cowboys end up in the Soviet Union, but it's really interesting history behind it. So there used to be a toy company in the United States called Louis Marks and Company. Guy sold his business in 1970s to Quaker Oats, which is food manufacturer, which later was sold to Pepsi. And that business went downhill, and when they shut down the toy part, they sold a lot of equipment all over the world, including Soviet Union. So Soviet Union got hands on some molds, dyes, whatever, to make toys. And that's how we Soviet Union kids got their cowboys. The equipment ended up in Donetsk, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Everyone knows about Donetsk because of Russian war. And initially quality was pretty decent. Then they started trying to use cheaper plastics. They damaged dyes. And later on, Soviet cowboys looked pretty rough. Besides cowboys, we also had Vikings, same marks, molds, and toys produced in Donetsk. Apparently, Louis Marks also produced Soviet plastic soldiers. I honestly don't remember seeing them. Not sure if we manufactured them, but that's how they looked when they were manufactured in the United States. But the coolest toy soldiers, toy action figures were these native Indians from Eastern Germany, from DDR. I won't be surprised that it's also molds from Mark's Toy Company, but they were colored. Those were really impossible to get, and mostly kids played them indoors because if you take them outside, you can lose them easily in a sandbox or they can get stolen by other envious kids. So this was kind of indoor play sets. You don't take them outside. All right, another question was, did they ever produce plastic action figures like the ones you were popular in the 80s? Well, first of all, in Soviet Russia, we had no superheroes. So action figures in an understanding of the American kid, we had nothing like that. But thanks to Louis Marks Toy Company, we had this type of action figures. Those were large plastic figures, about 6 to 10 inches tall. Usually kids didn't play with them much. They were like on display only. So we had Vikings. We also had Первобытные люди, primitive people, action figures. And we also had North American pioneers or frontier people available, once again made in Donetsk, using Mark's molds. And once again, we really didn't play with them because they were expensive and they were nice looking, so they were on display. The next question, did you have any pedal cars? They were expensive in Poland, and if you had one, you were bourgeois. I had Vanka Vstanka when I was a baby. Yes, of course, we had toy pedal cars, and they were deficit, in short supply, hard to get, and quite expensive, 25 rubles. So picture if you make $1,500 a month, this toy will be 250 rubles. So I didn't see many of them on the streets when I was a kid. I believe by 1970s, children and parents preferred children's bicycles over these toy cars because these things were extremely heavy and bulky. And if you have a tiny apartment, trying to find a spot for this car was challenging, especially if you live in a Khrushchevka building that had no elevator. Picture you live on the 4th or 5th floor And every time you need to hold this toy car all the way up the stairs, all the way down. Bicycle in that regards were way easier. But they did manufacture some cool looking toy cars, like this one right here called Zironka, which is in Ukrainian means little star. It was manufactured after the World War II in Lviv, Western Ukraine, at the forklift factory. And now these cars are really expensive and hot collector's items. And like this cool looking Raketa, the rocket pedal car, I never knew about its existence until I saw it in the photos. Or like this pedal tractors, I bet many American tractor collectors would love to have these toy tractors in their collection. Once again, I never seen those in person, and they were also manufactured in Lviv, Western Ukraine, at the forklift factory. And we also had so-called table games, like this one here called Ptitsolov, so the bird catcher. So you have this little pulley with the spring, and you shoot the metal ball, and then you try to score, different points right there. And once again, fun fact, this toy was manufactured in Lviv at the furniture factory. Alright, next comment from Mario N64. You're telling me they didn't make space rocket or satellite or spaceship toys? That's weird. No, Comrade Mario, I'm telling you that I never played with one and I never seen one. It doesn't mean they didn't manufacture any. For example, Soviet Union produced a lot of black caviar, but guess what? I never seen black caviar черная икра for sale in Kiev in all my 20 years in Soviet Union. But to answer your question, no, they did produce quite a few space-related toys in the Soviet Union, including Soviet Moon Rover Lunokhod. After I did some research, I discovered that in fact we did have Lunokhod Moon Rover for sale in the Soviet Union. The price tag was 20 rubles for this cord remote control Lunokhod. 20 rubles is like paying $200 if your salary is $1,500 a month. Never seen it for sale. It obviously looks super cool, but there's no way my parents would ever buy anything like that to me for that price. And how about this cool looking Planet Rover manufactured in Kharkiv? It was remote controlled and the price tag was 30 rubles, $300 if you make $1,500 a month. And this cool looking space toy called Lunnik, so like a mooner, was manufactured in one of the Baltic republics, and price was 6 rubles 90 cents, so $69. And some of the toy collectors might recognize that Soviet Lunnik looks especially similar to Lunar Moon Crawler from 1968, made in USA. Alright, so another question was, is it true that model trains were outlawed because the government thought that an interest in railroad infrastructure was something a spy would care about, or was the place I read that from total bull? Yeah, it's total BS. We did have model trains, but unfortunately they were very expensive and they were also deficit. I never played with one. The most desirable brand of model trains was from a company called Pico from Eastern Germany, DDR, and Soviet Union had some copycats, like the one made in Kursk. At the factory they produced also calculators and computers, but as you see, German looked way better. Another popular puzzle game was so-called Petnashki, and I was surprised to discover that in America they had a similar game too in 1950s called 15 Puzzle. So that's when you move the numbers around to arrange them properly from 1 till 15. I also remember playing with this Jeep, surprisingly bright yellow color for the Soviet toys. It was manufactured in the 80s in Riga, and it looked really similar to the toy manufactured in Sweden in 1970s. I also used to own one of these metal toys, BTR we call them, Bronetransporter, troop carrier. My parents sent me this toy together with bananas for my birthday while I spent my summer in the village. Cool toy, but look at the price. 3 rubles 80 kopecks or 3 rubles 30 kopecks for a little metal toy when your parents make 150 rubles a month. So it's like paying $38 if you make $1,500 a month. Toys were extremely expensive. The small metal T-34 tank toy was a little bit cheaper. The cost was only 1 ruble 20 kopecks, so $12. Remember my childhood friend Dima? He is here on the left, while I'm proudly showing off my Winchester rifle. Well, that kid owned this cool tractor with the plow and excavator arm. It was so cool, and we played so much with it. We were building roads, digging trenches and all kind of stuff. We spent hours during the summer just playing with the tractor and a couple of little toy dump trucks. There was another super cool and super expensive Electronica Planet rover, Planetahod. The price was 35 rubles for this toy, so $350. And my guess it was so expensive because Soviet manufacturer had to pay royalties to American company Milton Bradley for their big track from 1979. Just kidding. And another classic example of the Soviet manufacturers borrowing ideas from the other countries. Our Tatosha Hippo toy from 1984 looked exactly like Waterful Hippo from Japan from 1977. And of course I need to mention that Soviet girls also had dolls to play with. As you see here, it's a nice selection. But the best and most desirable dolls came once again from Eastern Germany, from DDR, and they were extremely expensive and hard to find. We also had table games like this Nastolny Hockey, ice hockey. I own one of those. They look different though, but this is general idea. And you have, of course, the little sides to keep the score. And of course, Soviet kids had plastilin, Play-Doh to make different things with. So that item was very popular, was everywhere. At least we had plenty of supply of plastilin. And of course, Soviet girls also had toys to play, to pretend they cook in the kitchen. Of course, I never seen any of those. I was playing with boys, but here we are. And when I was preparing for this video, I discovered there were so many Soviet toys out there that I never seen, I never had a chance to play with, like this cool set. That'll be awesome to have one of those. By the way, I forgot to mention when I show you this Maxim machine gun toy, it actually had a little wounding mechanism and a little button, so when you crank the spring inside and you push the button, it'll make a little ta-ta-ta-ta-ta noise. And to tell you the truth, I was surprised to discover that now there's a big market for collecting Soviet toys. There are a lot of people exchange them, they buy them, restore them. Huge market now. And I was like, I spent my childhood in the Soviet Union, but to tell you the truth, I care less about all those toys. Although I have to admit, some older metal toys, especially trucks, look extremely cool, look brutal. But I probably wouldn't mind to have this toy in my collection. Once restored and painted, it probably will look pretty cool. So the Soviet toys, Советские игрушки, big picture. As you see, we had quite a good selection. Although many toys were deficit items, were hard to get, a lot of toys were quite expensive compared to what people were earning in the Soviet Union, and a lot of Soviet toys were just stolen design from the Western toy makers, which of course we had no idea because we were completely cut out from the West. We'd never seen commercials, we'd never seen those toys. So they all looked original and super cool. And before we finish today, I would like to mention that I'm planning to make one more video about electronic gadgets in the Soviet Union. So we're talking about late 80s. So there'll be a separate video. There's quite a lot of things to discuss there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching Ushanka Show. Please don't forget to like this video, post the comment, maybe share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.